Some stories are just stories, and in some are warnings. Tonight's tale was hidden for a reason, but now it's yours. Turn off the lights and listen closely. Have you ever driven for hours on an endless stretch of road, so tired that you weren't sure if your eyes were playing tricks on you? Earl Henderson had been behind the wheel of his 18-wheeler for nearly 14 hours straight. The long haul from Arizona to Oklahoma was a route he had driven dozens of times before. Same barren desert roads, same quiet highways, same empty night sky with its stars stretched wide like spilled salt. But this night was different. His CB radio had gone silent hours ago. The last gas station he passed was boarded up, broken pumps standing like forgotten grave markers. The further he drove, the more his headlights revealed only nothing. No signs of life. Not a single car passed him, not one. That's when he saw it. A glowing neon sign in the distance. Last chance truck stop. Food, gas, motel. Relief washed over him. His fuel gauge was dangerously close to E. His stomach growled. His eyelids drooped. A hot meal and a bed sounded like salvation. The place looked alive. Too alive. Bright neon lights buzzed. A few semi-trucks were parked outside. Music leaked faintly from the diner. Through the dusty windows he saw people. Truckers hunched over coffee mugs, waitresses sliding plates across counters. He parked his rig, stepped out, and instantly felt something was off. The air was colder. The wind had stopped. The highway behind him looked darker than it should. He brushed it off and pushed through the diner's door, greeted by the smell of bacon and stale coffee. "Sit anywhere, hun," a waitress said, not looking at him. He sat. His boots echoed too loudly against the floor. The other truckers in the diner didn't look up, didn't blink, didn't move, like they were frozen in place. Earl's mouth went dry. He waved at the waitress again. That's when he noticed the coffee pot in her hand wasn't pouring. The liquid inside wasn't moving. Neither was the steam from the griddle behind the counter. Everything had stopped mid-motion, like a photograph. And then, all at once, every head in the diner turned toward him. Every single one. The waitress leaned down, her voice low and cold, whispering words that sent a shiver crawling up his spine. "You shouldn't have found this place." The storm seemed to roll in faster than Mike could comprehend. 1 minute the horizon was clear, the next it was swallowed by ink-black clouds. Rain lashed against his windshield, wipers struggling to keep up. The GPS glitched again. The glowing arrow spun in circles, then pointed him toward a stretch of road he swore he had never seen before. It wasn't paved like the rest of the interstate. It was narrower, darker, almost as if it had been carved through the woods by hand. A pit twisted in Mike's stomach. Truckers had an unspoken rule. Never take a road you didn't know, especially in weather like this. But the highway ahead was blocked by flashing hazard lights, and the GPS kept insisting, "Turn right, Highway 19. With no other choice, he eased the rig onto the forgotten road. The trees leaned in close, branches clawing against his trailer like skeletal hands. The storm above seemed muted here, the rain slowing, though the air grew impossibly heavy, thick with the smell of damp earth. Mike's hands tightened on the wheel. Something about this road felt wrong, like it hadn't seen another vehicle in years. His headlights caught faded road signs, riddled with bullet holes, words so rusted they were unreadable. The deeper he drove, the quieter it became, until all he could hear was the low rumble of his engine. That's when he saw her. A figure appeared in the beam of his headlights, standing dead center in the road. A woman. Pale, drenched, with long black hair plastered across her face. Her dress clung to her body, soaked and mud-stained. Mike's heart hammered. He slammed the brakes, tires screeching against the slick asphalt. The truck lurched, stopping just feet from her. For a moment, she didn't move, didn't flinch, just stood there, staring at him. Or at least, he thought she was staring. He couldn't see her eyes through the curtain of wet hair. Mike leaned forward, blinking hard. Maybe it was just the storm messing with him, or the fatigue of a long haul. But no, she was real. She was there. He rolled down the window slightly, rain spraying inside. "Hey, you okay out there?" he shouted. The woman didn't answer. She tilted her head slowly, unnaturally, like a broken doll trying to make sense of him. Something about that movement made Mike's skin crawl. He reached for the CB radio, hand shaking, but all he got was static. Then, without warning, the woman's lips parted. She mouthed something, silent, deliberate. 2 words. "Turn back." The lights inside Mike's cab flickered. The engine sputtered once, twice, then roared back to life. His pulse was racing now, sweat cold on his neck despite the storm outside. He blinked, and she was gone, not walking away, not fading into the trees, just gone. Mike's knuckles turned white around the wheel. Every instinct screamed at him to throw the truck into reverse and get off this cursed road. But when he glanced in the mirrors, the way back was gone too. The road behind him had dissolved into thick, impenetrable fog. He was trapped. He gritted his teeth, shifted gears, and pressed forward. The only way out was through. The road ahead seemed to stretch longer and longer, as if it were pulling him deeper into the woods. He adjusted his rearview mirror again, half hoping, half dreading to see that woman behind him. But what he saw was worse. In the mirror, the road wasn't empty. It was lined with people. Dozens of them, standing silently in the rain, their faces hidden, their clothes tattered, their eyes reflecting the dim red glow of his taillights. And they were all watching him. Have you ever felt like the road itself was alive, breathing, waiting, and watching? Hank was beginning to. The diner had felt too quiet, the waitress too detached, and the man at the end of the counter too knowing. As Hank pulled his rig back onto Route 190, the storm had broken loose in full force. Sheets of rain pounded the windshield like fists, and the wipers barely kept up. The world outside became nothing but shadow, streaks of lightning, and the long scream of asphalt. He pressed the accelerator harder, desperate to put distance between himself and the diner. His CB radio crackled suddenly, though he hadn't touched the dial. "You can't outrun it, Hank." The voice was low, metallic, warped by static. Hank froze. He hadn't broadcasted. Nobody should have known his name. "Who is this?" he shouted, gripping the mic. "Identify yourself." The only answer was the sound of labored breathing, heavy and wet, like someone gasping through a crushed throat. Hank slammed the radio off, but then came the headlights. At first, Hank thought it was just another rig, maybe a local trucker hauling through the storm. The twin beams appeared in his mirrors, far back, then drawing closer. Too fast. Way too fast. Hank kept steady on the gas, but the truck behind him closed the gap like a predator scenting blood. Its headlights flared white-hot in the rain, blinding him. Then, without warning, it disappeared. Gone. Hank's heart hammered in his chest. He hadn't passed an exit. There'd been nowhere for it to go. Yet the mirrors showed only blackness now, just his own headlights carving the storm. He tried to convince himself he was tired, hallucinating. But then, the CB crackled again, even though it was still off. "Mile 247, Hank, that's where it happened." His stomach dropped. The waitress had mentioned the same mile. The dead mile. Hank's hand slicked the wheel with sweat. He remembered trucker lore, ghost stories told at rest stops, about phantom rigs that chased the living until they ran themselves off the road. But this wasn't a story anymore. As if answering his fear, the phantom truck appeared again, this time ahead of him. No taillights, no brake lights, just a hulking shadow in the rain, occupying the center of the road. Hank yanked the wheel, swerving into the other lane. His own horn screamed as his trailer fishtailed, barely missing the phantom rig's bumper. But when he looked again, there was nothing. Only open highway stretching into the storm. Breathing ragged, Hank glanced at the dash clock. Mile 245. 2 miles until 247. The storm seemed to grow thicker, heavier, as if the road itself wanted to keep him there. The rain drummed like war drums. His headlights caught movement on the roadside, shapes standing just beyond the trees, human shapes. Hank squinted. They were lined up in rows, motionless, pale faces reflecting the lightning, watching, waiting. His skin prickled as he passed them. They didn't move, didn't blink, just stood there like mourners at some endless roadside funeral. Finally, the green mile marker appeared through the sheets of water. 2:47. The CB shrieked to life without warning, deafening in the cab. "Do you remember it now, Hank?" the voice rasped. And in that moment, Hank saw something on the road that froze him to the bone. A semi, jackknifed across both lanes. Its cab crushed, windshield shattered, flames licking the wreck. And inside, slumped against the wheel, was a man. Not just any man, it was Hank. The storm swallowed the sound of his scream as the scene flickered in and out of existence like a broken film reel. Then, gone. The road was empty again, the only wreckage the pounding of his heart. But Hank knew. He hadn't imagined it. Something had happened here. Something to him. Hank has just seen his own mangled corpse inside a phantom wreck at mile 247. What really happened here, and why is he being haunted? The silence in the cab felt suffocating, broken only by the steady drone of the engine and the whine of tires on asphalt. Jack's mind raced, replaying what he'd just seen. The man on the road, the impossible fade into nothingness, and then the face in the side mirror, watching him from the sleeper berth like it had been riding with him all along. He dared a glance into the mirror again. Nothing. The berth was empty, shadows draped neatly across the blanket he hadn't touched in hours. His chest heaved as if he'd just run a mile, his hands shaking on the wheel. "You're tired, Jack. Too many hours. That's all this is," he muttered, trying to steady himself. But then, a sound. Not outside, not in his head. From inside the cab, a slow, deliberate breathing. It came from directly behind him, soft but steady, as if someone was seated quietly on the edge of the bed. Jack's throat tightened. His instinct screamed at him to keep driving, to not look back. But human curiosity, it was a curse. He reached up, clicked on the dim amber cab light, and inched his head around. The berth was empty, perfectly empty. But the blanket, he swore it had shifted, like someone had just lain down and got back up. Suddenly, his CB radio hissed again. "Jack!" The voice was drawn out, low and wrong, like the syllables were melting. "You missed your stop." His hand shot to the radio and yanked the plug free, killing it. The hiss died instantly, replaced once more by silence, and then his phone lit up on the dashboard. Unknown number, a text message. He hesitated, then tapped the screen. "Check your back seat." His heart almost stopped. Back seat? The rig didn't have a back seat. With a trembling hand, Jack angled the phone like a mirror to the dark glass window behind him. For half a second, he thought it was just his reflection. But then the other Jack in the phone's glass smiled, wide, unnatural, too many teeth, while he himself was stone still. Jack slammed on the brakes. The truck skidded across the asphalt, tires screaming. The force threw him forward, nearly slamming his head against the steering wheel. When the 18-wheeler finally lurched to a stop in the middle of the dark two-lane road, his body shook with adrenaline. His headlights lit up the empty stretch ahead. Nothing but trees, black and endless. And then, movement. At the very edge of the headlights, something stepped into view. A man. No, the man. The hitchhiker. He was standing dead center in the road, his face half turned toward Jack's truck. His skin looked even paler now, gray under the harsh beams, and his lips were moving as if whispering something Jack couldn't hear. Jack leaned forward, straining to read his expression. And then the hitchhiker raised his hand, slow, deliberate, and pointed straight at Jack. Jack's blood ran cold. He reached for the ignition, desperate to put the truck back in gear and floor it. But before he could move, his headlights flickered once, twice, and then went out completely. Pitch black swallowed him. You think you know the rules of the road, but what if I told you? This highway was never meant for the living. The engine roared as Mark pressed the pedal harder, trying to outrun the impossible. But no matter how fast he drove, the road stretched endlessly ahead. An infinite ribbon of black asphalt lined with dead trees and broken signs pointing nowhere. His hands gripped the wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white, but the truck almost seemed to steer itself now, like it was on rails. The radio clicked on again, this time a woman's voice. Soft, familiar. Mark, you shouldn't have left me. He froze. His late wife. No, he whispered, shaking his head. No, that's not real. But her voice kept coming, calm yet laced with accusation. You left me in that hospital bed, alone, just like you leave everyone. His chest tightened, tears stinging his eyes. The voice was inside him now, louder than the engine, louder than the storm outside. He slammed the radio off, but the sound didn't stop. The CB crackled again. A man's voice replaced hers. Exit 13, 1 mile ahead. Don't miss it, driver. Mark squinted through the rain-streaked windshield. A crooked green sign flickered into view. Exit 13. Dead End Road. The same words painted in blood on the map. He didn't want to, but his hands moved as if commanded, cranking the wheel toward the ramp. The truck heaved onto the exit, tires screeching as if resisting the turn. The ramp wound downward like a spiral, each curve tighter, each shadow darker. When the truck finally leveled, Mark saw it. A single building stood at the end of the road, a flickering neon sign above it. Last Stop Diner. Every window glowed faintly yellow, but the parking lot was empty. The rain stopped as if the storm had been cut off by invisible hands. The world grew unnaturally silent. Mark parked, trembling, and stepped out. The diner's door creaked open before he touched it, as if expecting him. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of stale coffee and burnt grease, and there they were. Dozens of truckers scattered across the booths, motionless, pale, eyes open, staring, but not blinking. Coffee cups in their hands, food half-eaten on their plates, as if frozen mid-meal. Mark's stomach turned. These were the missing drivers, every single one of them. And then, one of them moved. A man in the far booth turned his head slowly, mechanical, his eyes hollow but locked on Mark. You finally made it, the man said, his voice low and gravelly. We've been waiting for you. Mark stumbled back, but the others began moving too. Their heads turned in unison. Some rose from their seats. Their voices merged into a chilling chorus. Welcome to the last mile, driver. Mark bolted for the door, but it slammed shut on its own. He ran to the counter, searching for another way out, when he noticed the jukebox in the corner flicker to life. It wasn't music. It was a recording of his own voice. This is Mark Holloway, heading east on I-90. If anyone finds this tape, it means I didn't make it. His heart dropped. He'd never recorded anything. The floorboards rattled beneath him. The truckers' bodies twitched, jerking toward him like marionettes. The diner seemed to pulse, the walls breathing in and out. And then, behind the counter, a figure emerged. Tall, thin, wearing a trucker's cap pulled low, face obscured in shadow. But Mark knew, deep in his bones, who it was. It was him. An older version of himself. Same jacket, same scars, same weary eyes. The doppelganger grinned. You've been driving in circles, Mark, the figure said. Every mile you've driven has led you here. The road doesn't end because you don't end. You're already one of us. Mark shook his head violently. No, I'm alive. I'm still alive. The older Mark stepped closer, placing a cold, heavy hand on his shoulder. Not anymore. The jukebox clicked off. The lights flickered, and every trucker in the diner whispered the same words together, their voices filling the air like the roar of an engine. The road goes on forever. The last thing Mark saw was his own reflection in the diner window, not moving with him, but smiling back long after he stopped. Mark had never been alive on that road. He was just another lost driver, doomed to repeat his final haul forever on the highway that never ends, the last mile.